Julianne Ginter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, like many Aucklanders, I'm an immigrant to Aotearoa, New Zealand. I chose to make my home here because I love this country. I love the mountains, I love the beaches, I love the old-growth forests, and I love the people of New Zealand, who I've found very warm, welcoming, practical, and above all, fair-minded. I had a successful career as a transportation analyst, and I did that because I wanted to have a job that allowed me to find creative solutions to some of the biggest, most pressing challenges of the 21st century. And so I did a lot of work in the areas of transportation, planning, economics, because I wanted to be part of the solution. And I ended up joining the Green Party, firstly because they are the party that shares my values, looking after the environment, ensuring that we have a fair society and a democracy. Decisions are made at the lowest level at which they affect people. But most importantly, the Green Party in Aotearoa was the only political party that really was championing the proven practical policies that should be mainstream but are not being implemented here in New Zealand. We know they've been proven overseas in very successful Northern European countries who are managing to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, reduce pollution. They don't have the levels of increasing inequality that we see here in New Zealand, and I think that we could follow that path. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Unfortunately, neither of the two larger parties have grasped the opportunities that are provided by understanding all the interconnections between our environment, our economy, and our society. It is common sense to respond to climate change as soon as possible, because we have to respond sooner or later. The sooner we take action, the less it will cost us. It is common sense to reduce the growing gap between the rich and the poor, because it's better for everyone in society. It ensures that we're all better off. It ensures that we build a much more successful society and economy in the future if we invest in our poorest kids. Now, the national government, and particularly I heard in the previous speech, the Honourable Nikki Kaye claiming some of these values. They want to say that they care about the economy, they care about fairness, they care about the environment, they're doing all these things. But when you get down to it and you look at the numbers, you look at the policy they're implementing, they are simply not taking us in a smarter, greener, fairer direction. They are taking us in a direction of greater inequality and more pollution. And I'd say the Green Party is the only party that's really prepared to stand up for younger New Zealanders who are being let down by this national government. I think the national government's deeply out of touch if they say the economy is working for everyone. We've got a younger generation that is drowning in student debt, unable to afford a home in Auckland, unlikely to be able to afford one anytime soon, even if they work hard and get a job. Wages are actually stagnating for at least half of the people in this country, and still a quarter of all children are living in poverty. So I'd say National's really lost touch with everyday New Zealanders. They're choosing to build an economy that relies on increasing pollution and the extraction of natural resources. It only really works for the New Zealanders who already have a lot. And it works very well for them. They've gotten tax cuts and, we're able to buy shares in our state-owned energy companies. They're doing quite well. They're not paying any tax on the capital gains they've seen in Auckland over the last few years. There is an alternative to this. There is an alternative to just tinkering around the edges, which is what this government has done. The Green Party has a costed plan to retool the economy to get a better, cleaner future that provides opportunity and prosperity for everyone. And I want to speak specifically about two issues. Firstly, environmental protection, the Resource Management Act, and transport, because those are two areas where this government in particular is missing huge opportunities. John Key admitted last week after the budget that they cannot get support for their most radical changes that are proposed to the Resource Management Act. These are the changes to Section 6 and Section 7 that would fundamentally gut our world-leading environmental protection law. And the reason they can't get support for these changes is because they are very radical, and it cuts to the heart of our national identity. I know New Zealanders love their natural environment. They're proud of it. And they know there's huge value in protecting it, immeasurable value. We set environmental bottom lines to protect the things that we value. And if you really believe in the ingenuity of people, as I believe the Green Party does, we know that people can adapt. Any economic activity must respect those bottom lines. As we know, The economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the natural environment. And once something is gone, it is gone for good. When a developer in Auckland proposed to cut down a 500-year-old kauri tree to build a house, 93% of New Zealanders agreed that the tree should be protected. Now that's what's at the heart. That's where the rubber hits the road, because National's changes to the RMA have already made it more difficult for communities to protect trees, to protect the places they love, to have a say on the development that's happening. Changing the purpose and principles of the Act would fundamentally change the balance in a way that means no environmental bottom lines. Communities can't protect trees, they can't protect the things they really care about. Giving up environmental protection does not make us richer. You only need to look at China to see where this trade-off has occurred. So they've managed to achieve huge GDP growth, but it's been at the cost of clean air, clean water, healthy communities. I know that's not what New Zealanders want here. We don't need growth of an economy that is reliant on increasing pollution and the extraction of non-renewable resources. That's just going to end up costing us in the long run. And Nationals use the housing crisis in Auckland as a Trojan horse for these reforms to the RMA. They're claiming that we cannot have affordable housing and protect our environment. Well, I know that's not true, Mr. Speaker. There is no evidence to support Nick Smith's claims that planning rules are entirely responsible for the housing crisis. In fact, if you look at the research, you can see pretty clearly, we've got research here in New Zealand from 2014, 2015, NZIER, Arthur Grimes and Mitchell. We've got estimates of what the impact of planning rules has been on development in Auckland. And if you believe the government, who likes to listen to a pro-urban sprawl think tank called Demographia, you would guess that the whole difference between, in the increase in house price costs is due to planning regulations, when the actual research in New Zealand shows that it's a much smaller impact, maybe 20 to 30% of the price can be explained by planning regulations, but most of the cost is actually on apartments or medium-rise density, the development of not just apartments, but townhouses, character flats, all the things that the Green Party has been saying for a long time we should be developing, because it's better for the environment. It means people can live where they want to live in compact, walkable neighborhoods where they can access goods, services, jobs through public transport or by walking and cycling. That's what people really want. Land values are highest on the isthmus, not out on the fringe, because people want to be on the isthmus. They want to be close to where things are. And the reason they can't afford it is because the planning rules don't allow that high quality mid-rise intensification, which is what we've been arguing for, and we're quite happy to work with the government. Of course, that's just the supply side. So I'd say on the supply side, the Greens have got it right. We've got a smart solution that not only reduces housing costs, but reduces transport costs, reduces pollution, and enables people to live where they want to live. On the demand side, it's clear that the tax treatment of income has fueled speculation in residential property, and the Green Party has long called for smart measures like a capital gains tax, limiting the amount of capital coming in from overseas, so limiting the purchase of land and property to citizens and residents here in New Zealand, and also having minimum standards for rental accommodation. All of that would help take the heat out of the housing market. And on the supply side, we would welcome central government leadership with a national policy statement and environmental standards on good quality mid-rise development in the central city, because that's where the evidence says people want to be. The other side of the coin is, of course, transport. There's no point in building cheap houses on the fringe where people just have to spend more on cars and transport to access education and jobs. A smart green approach enables people to live closer to jobs, closer to public transport, but we need that investment in public transport infrastructure first. And this is where National is really failing Auckland and future New Zealanders, because there's no money in this budget for new public transport infrastructure in Auckland. In fact, since they came to power, there has been no new money announced for rail projects in Auckland. All of it was committed under Labour, thanks to the pressure of the Green Party. 8 years ago, Now, if you look at the next 10 years, this is what the National Party is planning to spend the transport budget on, mostly on a bunch of motorways that have no business case. When growth in rail in Auckland is at 20% a year, there's been no growth in vehicle kilometers traveled. So this is where the investment should go because it's smart, it reduces pollution, it increases people's quality of life, it reduces costs for government, it reduces costs for households. We can have this smart green revolution here in New Zealand. We can have a fair society and we can respond to climate change, but we need a government that's willing to actually take on the evidence and take us in a better direction. The Green Party would do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.